I do want to warn you that there is mention of suicide in this episode. If you are feeling depressed and need support, please use the hotline 988. That hotline is available 24/7. Please use it if needed. You are not alone. Welcome to the Purposeful MD podcast. As a physician, you've sacrificed so much of your life for other people, your patients, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. What would it feel like to spend time doing what you enjoy and to live without guilt? I'm your host, Dr. Laura Sutton, a family physician, certified coach, and business owner. If you're a medical professional on a journey towards your most purposeful life, a life with more time and energy, and ultimately more joy, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome, Dr. Amna Shabbir, to the Purposeful MD podcast. It's so good to have you.
So excited to be here, Laura.
Yes. So a little bit about you. Dr. Amna Shabbir is a physician, primary care physician, and a certified coach. She's the founder and CEO of the Early Career Physicians Institute. She's a Duke certified wellness and life coach, a dual board certified geriatrician internist, and super mom to 2 young girls. She passionately supports new attending physicians in navigating post-medical training challenges, helping them to excel both personally and professionally. Dr. Shabbir and I met through a mentorship program through the Physician Coaching Alliance. And I know that you're a primary care physician previously in a hospital setting as well. I'm really inspired by your passion and your commitment to new physicians. I know you're very active on social media and you're always sharing your wisdom and inspiring others. So appreciate you being on. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sutton. I'm so happy to be here. And yes, that journey from being a primary care physician and then now being a geriatrician, it's definitely been an interesting road, nonetheless. And early career physician well-being is very near and dear to my heart. That's the message I want to share, that early career physicians are supported. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah. So I want to talk about your journey and I want to talk about what you do to support early career physicians. So where would you like to start?
I think let's start from my journey as an early career physician. And
Yeah.
a lot of times, people have adverse journeys and issues that come up during medical training, which is a very challenging time of our life. Medical training in US, medical training in the world, anywhere, it's not perfect and it's very strenuous. For me, that could have been a time that could have been very traumatic because I had some healthcare issues come up while I was expecting my first daughter. But it wasn't, because I had support and my program director was really vested in my well-being. And because I sought support, and she sort of mandated the support because I wasn't one for actually asking for help. I find, if I look back, that time of my life was well done in a way. So the rigors and the burnout of residency were there, but I was supported. So fast forward, I start my career as an early career physician. In the first couple of months, I'm extremely passionate about primary care. I was a primary care track resident. I'm doing all the things, but slowly and gradually, um, burnout starts to set in. And it's very disturbing that this happened in the first couple of months, and I was not expecting it. I completely suppressed it. My first telltale sign was that utter feeling of morning dread when you're sitting in your car and you just don't want to get out and go and just go through your day. And when you go home, all the things that women have to deal with come, I had a toddler at that time, and um, I was then later expecting my second child. So all the things were happening, and I felt very alone. And I felt that I had to also project this perfect image of me knowing everything, in a clinical setting, in a non-clinical setting. And I had to be there for everyone, my patients, my staff, paperwork, my family. all the roles and all the responsibilities. So as an early career physician in the first couple of years, I burnt out and I didn't want to ask for help. And guess what else happened at that time? The pandemic. So I was pretty crisp before the pandemic started with burnout. But as the pandemic rolled, all of this just became very magnified. I then also subsequently had dealt with postpartum depression a second time. It was depression and anxiety mixed. When my postpartum anxiety and depression got a little bit better, I had a physical injury that required me to sort of be bedbound for a stretch. It was one thing into the other thing then, and you really come to this point in life when you start reflecting, can I do this any longer? And if I can I do it well? And what else will it take for me to reconsider my life in its totality and my existence as a human, not just as a physician? It was at that time I really had to search deep inside and look at my reason and my why for continuing to be a physician. And I realized that I love taking care of older adults. And so for me, the answer to my burnout initially was to go back in medical training and do a fellowship in geriatrics and then reinventing myself as a physician. And following that, I'm now continuing to stay in a limited part-time clinical role where I help older adults and take care of them in rehab facilities and nursing homes, while also giving back backwards to my younger self, who was an early career physician, and helping other early career physicians through my institute and supporting them so that they don't have to walk that journey alone and they can recognize the power that they have.
That is, thank you for sharing all of that. It is just tremendous that you are sitting here talking about this and that you've come out on the other side, and so many things in what you just shared. First of all, the fact that you had support when you were in your residency program, and you mentioned a couple different times, I didn't feel like I could ask for help. And that was one of the scenarios where it sounds like your program director mandated it, was the word that you used. And the fact that you had somebody that recognized how challenging that time was for you and supported you in getting the rest and the health help that you needed to take care of yourself and your daughter that you were expecting. And then as you progressed and becoming a new physician and feeling like you had to do all the things, coming home from work and doing what we call the second shift, taking care of a toddler, taking care of a house, whatever, all those things that we have to do to maintain this image. You mentioned that feeling like you had to do everything perfect is just such a recipe for burnout, like you said, and that you experienced that and adding the pandemic and mental health challenges, physical health challenges. It's just it's such a testament to you that you're sitting here, and the fact that you're also giving back and providing that level of support and coaching to early career physicians so that no one has to feel that they're alone. It's just beautiful. I just want to honor that. It's thank you for being you and for sharing all of that.
Thank you for your kind words. And you know, I share my story and I started sharing last year, but I am by no means special. There are so many, I feel that I am the sum total of all the other humans that are out there in some shape or form. And if I could just have someone not feel alone, have someone have the courage to ask for help, and that's what I'm trying to model. Because when we are thinking burnout and mental health struggles are issues that happen to other people. That's one way to look at it. And then the other way is also this very jaded, cynical way of looking, oh, another burnt out physician. What else is new? So somewhere in the middle, you have to recognize when we throw words like burnout, what does that actually mean? That's a clinical word almost. When you use the term moral injury, what does that actually look like? And so if I had to explain what it looked like for me, I felt heartbreak. I felt I felt let down in a way that all the passion and the drive that I had to provide primary care to my patients who absolutely deserve it. I've been on both sides of the exam table with physical challenges, and the system is broken. And I wanted to be that model primary care physician who was doing all the things, and it was so hard. So if we can embody asking for help, it it can allow another human to really get the courage to ask for help. And also, for me, when I say heartbreak, it's like loss of dream. And this is what I had always wanted to do. In my core, I feel I'll always be a primary care physician. We are the primary care physicians are the backbone of the healthcare system. So when you can't live your dream, you have a broken heart. And that bleeds into your energy level, your drive, your purposefulness. And now I have found that in a different way as I practice geriatrics and helping families. And then also, I'm finding the same purpose helping other early career physicians find that voice. So you might hear the term burnout being thrown around, but it might look very different for you. For some, it even looks like, I mean, there was a time I felt that I was going through a sort of identity death. I'm trying to create this whole new person who is okay asking for help, who is now okay talking about the struggles that she went through. Whereas before I had to be all the things and it's like that all or none thinking. You have to be perfect and you have to do all the things, and medicine is practiced only in one right way. And your creation outside of that doesn't exist.
Yeah. You mentioned the identity death, and what I hear from you is this grief for this person that you really wanted to be when you were small. I mean, we go into healthcare because we love it and we're passionate about it. We love taking care of people. We love the science behind it. And when it turns out to be not what we thought it was going to be and not what we dreamed it was going to be, it's really very challenging. And then you brought up moral injury too. And I know there's so many different terms about burnout and moral injury and different definitions. I love how you frame that. What I picture is a physician who really wants to do the right thing for their patient and can't for whatever reason. Either they lack the time, lack the energy, the resources, whatever that looks like. And that is really, really difficult for any physician. And I think at least in my experience in the academic space, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, we tended to be a little bit insulated from lack of resources that patients experience because we can order the tests that we need and we can get those types of treatments or whatever that we might not be able to access in a primary care space, or especially if we're in a rural or underserved area, then we notice some of those gaps a lot more. Just they could become a lot more significant and more impactful on our careers and what our patients can access. I don't know if that's something that you experienced. I see you nodding, so it sounds like, yeah, it's
So I definitely agree that that can be a big issue. I was in an institute where resources in the area and resources were available, and I had learners with me as well. So I think this would be a perfect example of when you have all the resources and you are actually in a very resource replete area, but the resource that is you have only so much to give
right.
because the way the whole healthcare system model is set up for primary care in traditional insurance-based organizations, you have to produce, you have to crank out. And if you have 15 to 20 minutes from the time a patient checks in at the front desk to the time they get roomed, and then they have the care that they need and they deserve, which is all the things as a primary care physician, which you should be addressing. Frankly, it's appalling. That's the expectation. Imagine like the cognitive load that you're carrying constantly. And if one person is late and then you feel that you have to see them, which we all do, we feel that way. And the domino effect that starts in at the end of the day, everyone is gone except for that doctor sitting and answering and doing all the things. So I was doing all the things and I was being all the people, but then at the end of the day, I didn't know who I was. And I would describe it that way at 8:30 p.m. when I'm walking inside my house after a day of clinic, I felt like a shell of a human. And then we wonder, why we have an epidemic of physician suicide, why people are not asking for help. And externally, yeah, I would go home and then I would get ready for my second shift, whatever sleep, whatever other things I could cram in the middle. And the next day you wake up and you repeat. So that also what ends up happening is then you're in the conveyor belt. That's it. You're stuck in a loop. This is an Instagram reel that you are stuck in real time unless you consciously make an effort to unstuck yourself before it's too late. And these are all great conversations. I caution anyone listening to this, if you are experiencing this and not doing anything, this can turn into a very bad situation. And I am not making this up. We have stats over stats over stats of physicians burning out, leaving medicine, the incoming medical students not wanting to do clinical medicine because they look at how we're practicing medicine. And then there's also this important thing that I want all patients, if there's anybody non-clinical listening to this, or what's happening to your doctors is going to ultimately impact you. And as a consumer, you should be very, very cognizant of this. So we can make this entire case of, if we don't change and if we don't make a small step towards change, how awful it can impact you on an individual and on a system level.
Absolutely. And the impact on patients, we can't emphasize that enough because like you said, we are the resource. I love the way that you pointed that out, that if we are depleted, we can't provide that care for patients, and patients need to worry about this too. There was a study, maybe you remember where it came out, I'm blanking, that said that primary care physicians need 27 hours in a day to address everything that patients need addressed. Preventive screenings, acute care, chronic care management. And that's not like we need 27 hours in our day to fulfill ourselves. That's 27 hours in a work day. And
Yeah.
so we know that our patients are not getting the adequate care when we're burned out. And that is heartbreaking. I agree with you. And I appreciate what you said about, if anybody's listening to this and feeling this way, definitely we want you to reach out. The number 988 is a hotline for anybody who is not just feeling the feeling the need or feeling the desire to hurt themselves, but anybody who's feeling depressed or feeling like they're stuck or needing to talk to somebody is an absolute great resource. And so I appreciate that you pointed that out, because I know your mission is to make our physicians feel like they're not alone, and they're truly not.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Laura. And I can't stress that enough, because what what all of this does is, when you're in the pit of burnout or when it's slowly setting in, even asking for help is exhausting. And I mean, this was the first thing that I noticed. People are like, well, I was listening to great podcasts at that time. I was reading books. I slowly started to do that. That opened my mind up to possibilities. And as I was seeking help in other shapes and forms, the counseling, coaching, it started to get me. But the first thing I noticed about my entire situation was I was so tired. Asking for help was exhausting.
Mhm.
And I felt like all the things, all the people that are out there, the cynicism was very real. Like, that's all stuff that works for all these, I don't know what positive streak these people have. This is not going to work for me. All primary care physicians practicing in traditional medicine are pretty much miserable. And that's going to be my life. And I'm going to have to pretend that it's not, because that's what I was doing, right? Every day, when you don't take action, that's also action. That's also a choice that you're making. If you're feeling awful and not doing anything about it, that's also a choice. And you always have choice. And we need to recognize the agency that we have as physicians and the cost of your inaction. The cost of not asking for help is huge. It's tremendous. So once I took that first step, then slowly everything started to become tangible and attainable.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you said about asking for help. There's still a stigma around it. And at least I'm curious to your perspective in the academic space now. When I was in training, if we asked for help for we called it scut work, right? It is going to transport the patients down to x-ray. And then when they're done, you wait and you take the x-ray film because I'm old enough to trained before digital x-rays. So you grab the film and you bring it back with you, or you draw your own labs, or you do all these things that typically physicians are not doing on their own. There are other staff to take care of these tasks in a clinical environment. And yet if we pass that off, well, the nurse can draw the blood, or if you're a resident and say the student can do it, then you're seen as weak or not a team player. And so there can be really a stigma around asking for help. I'm curious if that's still the case in academic environments that you're seeing.
I think it is, it will be institute dependent, and that just goes to show that there are organizations and training programs that are really setting a tone for collaboration. For example, in my fellowship, the conversation was all about interdisciplinary care. And I just felt that was such a rich environment where I was collaborating with physical therapy, occupational therapy, pharmacy to bring about care that older adults need. And it was just so incredible. But I also have spoken and talked with individuals who just felt that the culture very much is that it's your job and you do it, and you do what needs to be done, and that's it. And you just don't make a sound, especially add a layer of being a woman, add a layer of being a minority, any other layers to that. You might be perceived as somebody who is not flexible. And then the thing that I detest more than any is the labeling that follows. When we start labeling our trainees and labeling our colleagues, be very careful of that. And the person who is getting labeled, I mean, are you labeling them? Is the intent so that they can get help? What is the intent? Because labeling never works. And even if you're labeling someone positively, this person is great. They're getting dopamine hits and they're just going to keep doing what you think is great till the point that they're going to get exhausted. And I carried a lot of positive labels, which I'm slowly getting rid of because they weren't serving me. But the attitude I see sometimes is, especially when I'm trying to help a trainee, they were labeled as not being a team player. And when you piece through like factual evidence, a lot of time there's no evidence to support that. So then you're just really and honestly on ground destigmatizing asking for help. This is what that looks like. Here's another barrier, because if you ask for help, let me give you an adverse reaction to that. So when we talk about conditioning, there is no better way to have the Pavlovian conditioning than anytime you ask for help, anytime you look around, you're going to get tased and then you stop.
Right, right. And I love what you said before about when you ask for help. When any of us ask for help, we give permission to those around us to do so. We are reducing that stigma person by person, one by one, physician by physician. And when we can model that for other people, then it has a ripple effect, like you said. So tell us about your work in working with early career physicians. And your story clearly has shaped that, and I really appreciate you sharing that and using that as fuel for what your current work. So tell us about how you work with early career physicians.
Yes. So early career physician work. So I look at it in multiple dimensions and different facets. There is this recognition of not knowing your agency and not knowing your worth. As someone who's a new attending, someone who is just starting out, and then even someone who is in the first couple of years. For me, when I get asked this question, who do you mean is an early career physician to you? So I use the term for defining people who are in the first 7 years after training, because those are the years that you go from being absolutely new to then reconsidering where you're at, to questioning your purpose and fulfillment if you want to continue in this either environment, in this specialty, whatever that may look like for you. So during this entire journey, there are various themes that come up, and I hear confidence struggles as one of the main themes that's stopping you from actually advocating for yourself, advocating for your needs from administration, from peers, with patients. It could be anything. And work that I do will take form in terms of one-on-one coaching, it could be a workshop, it could be many different ways that we can create. Bottom line is you should be empowered to have a stress-free life that you can sustain future in overall, and to feel supported in that time, because feeling alone, trying to do all the things and not knowing what your rights are huge. So, and as part of the Early Career Physicians Institute, we host a variety of free webinars and Q&A series to allow, the focus for those is to allow you to know your rights, to know facts. For example, the last two or three, I had healthcare attorneys come talk about contracts, visas, all the things you should know. We had one about finance. We had one about real estate investments. That was just through the lens of somebody who is an early career physician, because the bottom line is this: if you're confident, you know your worth, you know what you bring to the table, and you know that you are going to be doing this job because you want to and not because you're tied to this financial rock that's like on top of your head and you're crushed under it, and you're just doing it because you feel pushed to. Imagine what your well-being is going to look like if you know you want to do this job and you know how awesome you are. What will follow afterwards? And you, when things fall out of line, are able to articulate your needs. And advocating for yourself is not a dirty word. Articulating your needs is not a dirty word, because at the end of the day, when you don't do all of these things, probably you're going to end up leaving medicine. And research has shown that residents, when they start their first job, typically will end up 50% will end up leaving their first job. And in 2019, there was an article published in JAMA that talked about how 40% of women physicians in after the first 6 years will either go part-time or will leave medicine altogether. And this was pre-pandemic. We know all the burnout reports that have come out. Things are not looking good, but I also always want to emphasize the positivity and the agency and the choice and control that we have. So when I am working with my clients, I'm trying to focus on all the things that you can do, because it's very easy to say, well, the system is broken, everyone's burnt out. I guess this is what my life as a doctor. And or trying to be like toxically positive, like, and what I say, inappropriately grateful, because, oh, I am just so grateful, like this place, like they're just so nice. They smile at me, and they're trying to be kind to me, whereas not recognizing that with the smile there's an email and another task that you need to do, and you're probably not being paid your worth. You don't have time for yourself. So there are so many different facets that if we address right now in the first couple of years of your career, imagine what the rest of your life looks like. Imagine what all these other things happen. And then sometimes it's not really what's happening in medicine. It's not what's happening in the hospital at all, but what's happening outside. As an early career physician, a lot of my clients are establishing their families, they're buying their first home. It's all those other things that are happening in life. Some of them are wanting to take on hobbies that they have put away for so long. Some of them are trying to really recognize, wow, uh, I had a number done on me in terms of my mental and physical health. How can I be healthy? So there are so many components, and I kind of help all my clients through those. It's really what is there for you. But being an early career physician is a very unique time in your life, and it can be an amazing time in your life. So if you're not feeling that, you can create that. And that's where I would focus all of this.
Oh, that's so amazing. I'm really wishing I had you when I was an early career physician, and the confidence that you mentioned and knowing that there are options and advocating for yourself. I see so many physicians that feel stuck or feel like they can't ask for what they're worth, or they don't even know what they're worth. And the gratitude, like you said, that, well, I should just be grateful. And the things that you mentioned, I'm grateful they smiled at me and they're nice to me. Well, that's a bare minimum. That's just human. You deserve that as a human. I hear that a lot from physician clients about just yeah, I'm just grateful that they let me go home at 5 p.m. or whatever that is, kind of just really accepting. Sometimes we accept scraps, right? And we need to ask for the whole loaf of bread, really, because without us, there are no patients to be had. And just having somebody like you in their corner to help them realize, yes, this is what you're worth, and we'll give you resources related to legal, financial. We don't learn that stuff in medical school or residency. We don't learn how to manage our money. We don't learn how the unique needs of physicians translate into financial planning, and we don't learn how to run our business if we're private practice owners, and there's just so much of it. And so it's amazing what you're doing, and it sounds like it's so incredible for early career physicians. I love all of it.
Thank you. I so appreciate you sharing and allowing me to share on your platform about this, and the incredible work that you're doing is so great. And we always look at coaching either as something that only high profile individuals need. Either you have to be an athlete, you have to be like a superstar, you have to be in the C-suite, all those things. Well, all of the physicians are rock stars to begin with. You are incredible. How incredible is this that you go and you get to save lives every day? Even for the folks that are doing chronic care management and doing preventive medicine every day, you are incredible and you are such an asset. You definitely deserve support. If all the amazing athletes can have coaches, you definitely can. And it doesn't, it could be any or anything, but managing your mind and optimizing your life, it brings me back to the whole wellness illness continuum. It's really not just the absence of disease. So do we have to be in deplorable states before we even like lift up a finger and ask for help? No. I mean, a lot of times we're really playing into the arrival fallacy. And, this is something I see a lot. I felt that way, and I see a lot of it with my clients as well. Well, medical training is done, and, I'm an attending now. I thought that I would feel better. I thought life would be, I'm not being crushed under all the exams that I had to take, all the things. I was always on Jeopardy when I was a resident, all the things that you do as a resident. And then you become an attending, and surprise, you actually might be feeling worse because the whatever flimsy work hour restrictions were there, or support that was there, or faculty you could reach out to might be gone, and it's you. And it's the me, myself, and I becomes like very real. And so at that time, you have to start thinking, well, this is my life, and how do I want to create it consciously? I should not wait to be broken and then required to get fixed. I should know my value. I should know my rights. I should create an amazing life for myself because I am worthy. And you were worthy before becoming a physician day one. But if anything, your worthiness has just is skyrocketed with all of that education.
Yes. Yes. Shout it from the rooftops. As a physician, you are a rock star, you are worthy, and you deserve a coach. I'm with you. I think every physician needs a coach. And a coach, again, if LeBron James has a coach and he's one of the best athletes that has ever lived, if he needs a coach, then clearly just a testament to the power of coaching. And how amazing is it that we are in this area where coaching, I really feel like the stigma of coaching is being reduced, and just knowing so many coaches and so many amazing people like you to support our physicians. I feel like, yeah, if you are not working with a coach, there are a ton of resources out there, and just reach out because you're not alone and we have somebody in your corner for sure. So you mentioned about creative pursuits. I want to ask you about that because we were talking about this before we started recording, and you mentioned you're exploring some of those creative pursuits for yourself. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I was writing a book when I was in fifth grade. And it was a very interesting endeavor. And I used to love writing fiction, nonfiction, actually some poetry. My mom and dad have all those books saved and journals saved. But I stopped doing all of that and I used to debate and speaking was a passion. I also used to act and write plays. So all of that, I don't know what happened when I started very much identifying as a physician. I didn't have time, I guess, and I slowly just phased out everything else. And part of my healing journey has been recognizing myself as a full human, as a complete human, not just Dr. Amna Shabbir, not just mom, not just wife, not just daughter. All of those pieces are beautiful, but there's a part of me that requires nurturing. So 2023 was the year I started writing again, and I um, published and shared some of my journeys, including my journey in postpartum depression. And right now, the most I would say therapeutic has been writing for me. I've picked back a little bit of poetry again, um, and all those things, and really connection, and recognizing that we need that time in which we're not producing and we're just being. And what that might look like for you would be different. I also used to love making candles. So I'm thinking of, the vaxes arrived and I'm picking back. I used to make glacier candles. So taking back all of those things that made me who I am and gave me joy. And the amazing thing is that the more creative work I do, the better I feel when I'm actually seeing my patients. And I had this moment when last week, I felt the way I did back in medical school. A patient shared their story with me, and I was so inspired by their resilience and how incredible they are. And that was one of the core things that led me into medicine was how much people's stories inspired me. And there was this person going through such severe adversity from an early age, and they had such gratitude, and they shared that with me. And I felt it in my soul, I would say. I felt it so deeply and profoundly. I had to, luckily that day I was going from one nursing home to the other nursing home. I sat in my car and I actually journaled and I wrote about how I felt. And it was an incredible moment. And to be able to feel uh, inspired, to feel grateful, um, to feel moved, and to feel fulfilled. Those are all the things that were missing a couple of years ago. And I was able to tap back into that by using creative pursuits and all these other things. So it's really neat.
Oh, that sounds lovely and so amazing. And just, yes, I love that you're doing that. And we talked a little bit before we started recording too about how the most important thing that we can do is to take that time for ourselves. And if we're not healing ourselves, if we're not committing to that for ourselves, then we can't be any of those other things to anybody else. The wife, the daughter, the mom, the physician. We can't do any of that unless we're tending to our own needs. And I think we tend to tell ourselves, yeah, I can be all these things for other people and I'll sleep when I'm dead or whatever that looks like. I'll do this another time, but we have to take care of ourselves first, for sure.
Absolutely. And the word self-care is thrown around quite a bit. And I feel that some of my colleagues now feel pressured by that too. Like, great, I have all this like clinical work I have to do. I have the work I have to do at home. And now I'm supposed to be having self-care. I'm supposed to be like going for a pedicure or manicure or massage, whatever that is. No, it could be anything. Self-care is what you want it to be. Don't feel that you're adding more things. It's about filling your cup. And what does that mean? What does that mean to you? Like, it could be doing nothing. Sometimes I don't want to do anything, and sometimes I want to write and journal. So that pressure that we have to constantly produce, be careful if that's also now showing up in the way you're doing, you're scheduling your self-care. Like, great, I also have to do this.
Yes, so important, so important. Shouldn't be something else on our to-do list. Self-care can be taking 2 minutes to take a deep breath in between patients. It can be sleeping 7 hours a night uninterrupted. And just like you said, it's really about doing what we need and honoring our own needs. And it needs to be, again, remove that should or that pressure from ourselves. So, so important.
I just want to add here, self-care can also be you not taking on that next project that's being thrown at you. Self-care can actually be you saying no and not making it mean anything else. That's it. That's self-care. When you said no to something you didn't want to do that no longer aligns with anything, and it really is not going to affect patient outcomes or whatever, and learning to say no maybe would be the most powerful form of self-care.
Yes. Saying no to that unpaid project, extra work somebody's asking of you. Absolutely. Yes. Dr. Shabbir, it's been so wonderful to talk to you. I know you want to talk about your ebook, which looks amazing. So tell us about that.
It is a creation in which I talk a lot. I shouldn't say a little bit because I go in detail about with boundary setting and two other things that early career physicians, when they're starting out, they should know. I wish I had known these three things that when I had started out as an early career physician, and saying that no is part of it. I talk more in detail about self-worth and self-compassion. I give examples about boundary setting. And these are all examples with things that I have tried. And by the end, my patients still loved me and did not show up late to their appointments. And I mean, I had metrics to show that they did love me. So I really would encourage anyone to just take a peek. It's ideally for early career physicians, but anyone is welcome to check it out. And it's available at earlycareerphysician.com/ebook.
Yes, and we'll provide the link to that in the show notes, and we'll include your Instagram and your LinkedIn profiles as well, because I know you're very active and I follow you on both of those. And if you're listening and you're not following Dr. Shabbir, you need to, because you drop these wisdom bombs, and just your spirit is just full of compassion, and your heart is just is a beautiful, you have a beautiful spirit, and it's just so evident. Your heart is so evident in everything that you do. And so I'm just so appreciative and really just honor what you're doing. And thank you. Thank you for being on the podcast, and thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you for your kind words, and it's been an absolute delight. I so appreciate you for starting this podcast. And uh, when I had nobody, I had my podcasts, and they gave me the energy to go ahead and take that first step. And so I hope that this inspires anyone to take that first step. And I really appreciate all your work.
Thank you, Dr. Shabbir. Thank you for listening to the Purposeful MD podcast. If you like what you hear, please rate and review the show. Please also visit my website, www.thepurposefulmd.com, for free downloads or to discuss working with me as your coach.